Mama, that man is shaking. Can we help him? Latrice looked down at her son, then at the elderly man hunched over on the bus stop bench. The rain was coming down hard, and the man's thin jacket was soaked through. His whole body trembled. She did not think twice. She pulled off her coat, the only one she owned, walked over and wrapped it around his shoulders. Her hands shook the moment she let go. Now she was the one freezing, but she smiled at him anyway. "Stay warm, sir. Nobody should be out here like this." The old man looked up at her, tears in his eyes. He whispered, "God bless you, miss." That coat had cost her little at a thrift store, but the man wearing it now owned a hospital worth hundreds of millions, and soon Latrice's son would need that hospital to survive. But Ellis Harrington was no ordinary old man, and that bus stop bench was the last place anyone would expect to find him. Earlier that evening, Ellis had been sitting at the head of a mahogany conference table on an upper floor of Harrington Medical Center, the hospital he built, the hospital with his name carved into the stone above the front entrance. Decades ago, he had started it with nothing but a small loan, a medical degree, and a promise he made to his dying mother. She had passed from a heart condition that could have been treated if the family had money. They did not, and Ellis swore that no child, no family, would ever go through what his family went through. Not if he could help it. Harrington Medical Center grew into one of the top cardiac hospitals in the entire Mid-Atlantic region, a major institution. Ellis had poured his life into it. Every hallway, every operating room, every policy that said no child gets turned away. But that evening, the board wanted to sell. A massive corporate chain had put an offer on the table. The numbers were staggering. The board members sat there with dollar signs in their eyes, talking about shareholder returns and market valuation, like the hospital was a stock ticker instead of a place where children's lives were saved. And the voice pushing hardest for the sale belonged to his own son. "Dad, this is business," Devin had said, leaning forward in his chair. "The chain is offering far more than the current valuation. We would be foolish to walk away from that." Ellis had looked at his son, brilliant surgeon, top of his class, but somewhere along the way, Devin had stopped seeing patients and started seeing numbers. This hospital was built to serve people, Devin, not to be flipped like a piece of real estate. And it has served people for decades. But the world has changed, Dad. Healthcare is a business now. You cannot run a hospital on idealism. The room had gone quiet. 8 board members, not one of them spoke up for Ellis. Not one. He had stood up slowly, looked around the table at the faces he had trusted for decades. Then he said very quietly, "This hospital will not be sold. Not while I am alive." And he walked out. He did not call his driver, did not take the elevator to the parking garage where his car sat waiting. He just walked, straight out the front doors into the rain down the street, through the wet, empty blocks of downtown Baltimore. The rain soaked through his wool suit jacket in minutes. His expensive shoes squished in the puddles. His white hair was plastered flat against his head, but he kept walking because the cold outside was nothing compared to what he felt inside. Betrayed by his own son, by the people he had trusted to protect what he built. He ended up at a bus stop, an old metal bench with a cracked plastic roof that did almost nothing to block the wind. He sat down heavily. His hands were shaking, and not just from the cold. He was older now, exhausted in a way that sleep could not fix. To anyone walking by, he looked like just another man trying to survive another freezing night. His soaked clothes hung heavy on his frame. Rain dripped from his chin. His shoulders were hunched against the wind, and that was exactly how Latrice found him. But before we get to that moment, you need to understand who Latrice Carter was, because when she gave that old man her coat, she was not just being kind. She was being herself, and her story is just as important as his. Latrice was a young mother. She worked 2 jobs. She cleaned rooms at a waterfront inn. Checkout time meant rooms stripped, scrubbed, and reset. Then she would take the bus across town to a small soul food restaurant, where she waited tables until close. On a good night, she made a little in tips. On a bad night, less. She lived in a studio apartment with her young son, Malik. The apartment was small, one room, a kitchenette, and a bathroom with a shower that only ran hot for a short while. But it was theirs, and Latrice kept it spotless. Malik was the center of her universe, a bright, curious, talkative boy with a wide smile and eyes that never stopped moving. He loved drawing. He loved asking questions about everything. He loved pretending to be a superhero. But Malik was also sick. He had been born with a condition called tetralogy of Fallot, a congenital heart defect, 4 problems with the heart, all at once. His doctor at the free clinic had explained it to Latrice when Malik was just a baby. She still remembered every word. "This condition affects a small number of babies born in America, Ms. Carter. Malik's heart has a hole between the 2 lower chambers, and the valve leading to his lungs is too narrow. His blood is not getting enough oxygen. That is why his lips turn blue sometimes. He will need surgery, open heart surgery, ideally before he grows much older." Malik was still young, and his next birthday was coming soon. The surgery would cost a great deal. Latrice's Medicaid covered part of it, but not nearly enough. She was still short a large sum. She had called every number she could find, applied to every program, filled out every form, but the waiting lists were long, the approvals were slow, and the clock was ticking. That evening, the evening of the rain, Latrice had just finished her shift at the restaurant. She had picked up Malik from her mother Yvette's house. Yvette watched him every evening while Latrice worked, feeding him dinner, helping him with his homework, making sure he took his heart medication. Latrice counted her tips on the bus ride to her mother's house. She folded the bills carefully into her wallet and checked her phone. No missed calls from the hospital. No emails about financial assistance. Nothing. Malik was asleep on Yvette's couch when she got there. She carried him to the bus stop, his head heavy on her shoulder. He woke up halfway there, groggy but alert the way children do. "Mama, I am cold." "I know, baby. The bus is coming soon." That was when Malik spotted the old man on the bench, shaking, soaked, alone. And Malik tugged on Latrice's sleeve and said the words that started everything. Now, here is what happened next. And this moment, this small, ordinary moment, at a bus stop in the rain, was about to set off a chain of events that neither Latrice nor Ellis could have imagined. Malik pulled away from his mother and walked right up to the old man. No hesitation, no fear. Just a young boy with a broken heart, literally walking toward a stranger because he saw someone who needed help. "Are you cold, sir?" Malik asked. His voice was small but steady. "My mama says nobody should be cold if we can help it." Ellis looked up, and the first thing he noticed was not the boy's words. It was his lips. They had a faint bluish tint, a shade that most people would never notice. But Ellis had spent decades building a cardiac hospital. He had seen that color many times. He knew exactly what it meant. This child had a heart condition, but the boy was smiling. Wide and warm, like the cold did not bother him at all. Like helping a stranger mattered more than his own discomfort. Before Ellis could respond, Latrice stepped forward. She was already pulling off her coat, a thin brown parka worn at the elbows with a zipper that stuck halfway up. She draped it over Ellis's shoulders carefully, the way you would cover a sleeping child. "Oh no, miss," Ellis said, his voice weak from the cold. "I cannot take your coat." "You need it." Latrice shook her head. "I have survived worse than a little rain, sir. You need it more than I do right now." Her hands trembled as she pulled them back. Now she was the one standing in the freezing rain with nothing but a thin restaurant uniform. But she did not flinch. She just stood there, rubbing Malik's shoulders to keep him warm, and smiled at the old man like giving away. Her only coat was the most natural thing in the world. Ellis looked at her, really looked at her. She was young, tired, the kind of tired that goes deeper than one long day, the kind that settles into your bones from months and years of not having enough. But her eyes were warm, full of something he had not seen in a long time. Genuine kindness. No calculation. No motive. Just one human being caring about another. "God bless you, miss," he whispered. Latrice nodded. "You stay warm, okay? There is a shelter not far from here. They will take you in tonight." Headlights appeared down the block, the bus rumbling toward them through the rain. Latrice scooped Malik up and headed for the curb. "Bye, mister," Malik called out, waving over his mother's shoulder. "I hope you get warm." The bus doors opened. They got on. The doors closed. And Ellis sat there alone on that bench, wearing a coat that smelled like cooking oil and lavender shampoo. He pulled it tighter around his shoulders. It was thin. It was worn. It was the warmest thing he had felt in years. For the first time that evening, Ellis Harrington smiled. But he was not just smiling because of the coat. He was thinking about those blue lips, that little boy with the bright eyes and the broken heart, and the mother who gave away the only warmth she had because she saw someone who had less. Something shifted inside Ellis. Something he thought the board meeting had killed for good. Hope. He pulled out his phone and made a single call. "Gloria, it is Ellis. I need you to look into something for me first thing tomorrow morning." A boy. Young. His mother called him Malik. The next morning, Ellis was at his desk before sunrise. He had not slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that boy's face, those blue lips, that wide, fearless smile, and the mother who gave away her only coat like it was nothing. At dawn, he picked up his phone and called the one person he trusted more than anyone in the world. Gloria Monroe had been the head nurse at Harrington Medical Center for decades. She had been there before the hospital had a second floor, before the parking garage, before the fancy lobby with the marble floors. She had been there when it was just Ellis and a handful of doctors working out of a converted warehouse, stitching together a dream with duct tape and determination. Gloria picked up on the second ring. "Ellis Harrington calling me before the sun is up. This better be important. I need you to look into something for me." A patient, a child. His name is Malik, young. His mother's name is Latrice. I think they might be in our system. Gloria was quiet for a moment. "This about last night? You sounded strange when you called." "Just look into it, Gloria, please." An hour later, Gloria called back, and what she told him made Ellis grip the edge of his desk so hard his knuckles turned white. Malik Carter, young, tetralogy of Fallot. He was referred to us months ago by his pediatrician at the East Baltimore Free Clinic. He was scheduled for a surgical consultation with the cardiac team. She paused. It was canceled. Why? Financial. His mother has Medicaid, but it does not cover the full cost of the procedure. The billing department flagged the case. They required a deposit before they would move forward with the consultation. She could not pay. Ellis closed his eyes. How many times did she call? Several times. I pulled the phone records. She called over weeks asking for an extension, asking if there was a payment plan, asking if there was any way at all. Every time she was told the same thing. Without the deposit, they could not schedule the surgery. Who told her that? The Financial Services Department, following standard protocol. Standard protocol, Ellis repeated. The words tasted like ash in his mouth. "Ellis, listen to me." Gloria's voice softened. "This woman is not some deadbeat." I looked at her file. She works 2 jobs. She applied to every assistance program in the state. She even started one of those online fundraiser pages. She has raised a little. She needs far more. Ellis said nothing. "You know what is happening out there, right?" Gloria continued. "Many bankruptcies in this country are tied to medical bills. This woman is not lazy. She is drowning. And our hospital, your hospital, is holding her head under the water." That last sentence hit Ellis like a sledgehammer. His hospital. The hospital he built so that no child would ever be turned away. the hospital that had his mother's name on the pediatric wing, and it was turning away a young boy with a broken heart because his mother could not write a check for thousands. He sat there in his leather chair, surrounded by awards and framed photographs and decades of accomplishments, and he felt sick. "Thank you, Gloria," he said quietly. "I will handle it." "Ellis, what are you going to do?" "I do not know yet, but that boy is getting his surgery." That afternoon, Ellis called Devin into his office. Not the boardroom, not a conference call, his private office, just the two of them. Devin arrived in his white coat, stethoscope around his neck, looking like exactly what he was, a world-class cardiac surgeon. Ellis had never been more proud of his son's hands, or more disappointed in his heart. "I need to ask you something," Ellis said. "If a young child needed heart surgery and his family could not afford it, what should we do?" Devin leaned back in his chair. "That depends on the specifics. What is their insurance situation?" "Medicaid does not cover the full procedure. Family cannot make the deposit. Then we refer them to the state assistance program. There is a wait list, but that is the appropriate channel." "The wait list is long, Devin. The child needs surgery now." "Dad?" Devin's voice took on that careful, measured tone he used when he thought his father was being unreasonable. "We cannot absorb every case that falls through the cracks. The board is already reviewing our charity write-offs. If we start making exceptions, where does it end?" "It ends with a child being alive," Ellis said. "That is emotional thinking, not strategic thinking." Ellis stared at his son, and for a moment he did not see the accomplished surgeon. He saw himself, years younger, sitting in this very chair, telling his accountant that the numbers had to work, that they would figure out the community programs later, that right now the priority was growth. He had built the machine, and now the machine was running exactly the way he designed it, efficient, profitable, and heartless. Ellis remembered the day Harrington Medical Center opened its doors. He had stood on the front steps with Gloria beside him, a crowd of neighbors and community members filling the sidewalk, and he had said, "This hospital will never turn away a child. Not today. Not ever." He wondered when that promise had become just words on a wall. "You can go, Devin," Ellis said quietly. Devin stood up. At the door, he paused. "Dad, I know you care, but caring does not keep the lights on." After his son left, Ellis sat alone for a long time. Then he made a decision. He would not use his money to fix this, not yet. He would not pull rank or override the board. He needed Devin to see what he had seen, to feel what he had felt on that bench in the rain. He needed his son to remember why he became a doctor in the first place. But first, he needed to see Latrice again. Meanwhile, across town, Latrice was fighting her own battle, and she was losing. It started early the day after she had given her coat to the old man at the bus stop. She sat on the edge of her bed with her phone in one hand and a list of numbers she had written on the back of an envelope. First call, the Children's Health Insurance Program helpline. She had already applied twice, both times denied because her income was slightly over the threshold. "I'm sorry, ma'am. Based on your household income, you do not qualify for expanded coverage at this time, but I cannot afford the surgery without it. My son needs open heart surgery." "I understand, ma'am. I can transfer you to our appeals department. The current wait time for an appeal review is long." Second call, a nonprofit that helps families with children who have congenital heart defects. The woman on the phone was kind, genuinely kind, but the answer was the same. "We have a grant program, but our current funding cycle is closed. Applications reopen later. I can put you on the notification list." Third call, another organization. They could help with housing during the hospital stay, but not with the surgery cost itself. Fourth call, a medical debt assistance organization she had found online. They asked her to fill out a long application and said the review process takes weeks. By midday, Latrice had made many calls, many different organizations, many different versions of the same answer. "Not right now, Not yet. Fill out this form. Get in this line. Wait. She put the phone down and pressed her hands against her eyes. She would not cry. Not during the day. Crying was for late at night when Malik was asleep and could not hear. That afternoon, she picked Malik up from school. Usually he ran out the front door at full speed, backpack bouncing, shouting about his day before he even reached the car. Today, he walked slowly. His teacher was beside him, holding his hand. He had a rough afternoon, the teacher said quietly. He got winded during recess. Had to sit out. He said his chest felt funny. Latrice knelt down in front of her son. His lips were darker than the day before, that blue-purple tint that made her stomach drop every single time. Hey, baby. How are you feeling? I am okay, Mama. Just tired. He smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. Can we go home? That night, Latrice lay on the floor next to Malik's bed, listening to him breathe. She counted each inhale, each exhale, the way she had done every night for a long time. His breathing was faster than before, shallower. She could hear it. At some point, her mother called. I have been thinking, Yvette said. The house. I can sell the house. It is not worth much, but maybe enough to get closer to what you need. Mama, no. That house is everything you have. Malik is everything I have. I am not letting you sell your home. I will figure this out. Latrice Marie Carter, you listen to me. You have been figuring this out alone for years. Let me help. I said no, Mama. Latrice's voice cracked. Please, I will find a way. Yvette was quiet, then softly. Okay, baby. But the offer stands, always. After they hung up, Latrice sat at the kitchen table. It was late. The apartment was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the soft rhythm of Malik breathing in the next room. She spread out the hospital bills on the table. The numbers blurred through her tears, a little raised on the fundraiser, far more still needed, and time was running out. She put her head down on the table and cried, silently, the way she always did, because Malik could not hear his mother break, and she had no idea that the man she had given her coat to was at that very moment planning something that would change everything. Days later, Ellis walked into the soul food restaurant on North Avenue in the evening. He had changed out of his usual suit. Instead, he wore a simple gray sweater, plain slacks, and a flat cap pulled low over his forehead. No watch, no cufflinks, nothing that would give him away. He looked like any retired man out for a quiet dinner. Gloria had told him where Latrice worked. He told himself he just wanted to see her one more time, to confirm what he already felt. But the truth was, he needed to. Something about that woman had gotten under his skin in a way nothing had in years. The restaurant was small, maybe 15 tables, half of them full. The smell of collard greens and fried chicken hit him the moment he walked in. It reminded him of his mother's kitchen. A lifetime ago, he sat at a corner table by the window and picked up the laminated menu. A moment later, Latrice appeared. She was wearing the restaurant's uniform, a plain black shirt and an apron tied at the waist. Her hair was pulled back. She looked tired, the same bone-deep tired he had noticed at the bus stop. But she was smiling, a real smile, the kind that costs effort when you're running on empty. Good evening, sir. Welcome to the restaurant. Can I get you something to drink? Then she stopped. Her eyes went wide. Oh my goodness, you are the man from the bus stop, the one from the other night. Ellis smiled. Guilty. Are you okay? Did you find somewhere warm that night? I was worried about you. I am fine, miss. Better than fine, actually. That coat of yours saved me. Latrice's face relaxed into relief. I am so glad. I kept thinking about you. My son asked about you, too. He wanted to know if the shaking man got warm. Your son? The little one who came up to me first. That is Malik. He has got a big heart. She paused. Something flickered across her face. Biggest heart I know. even if it does not work quite right. Ellis leaned forward slightly. What do you mean? Latrice hesitated. She was not the type to unload her problems on strangers, but something about this old man felt safe. Maybe because he had been vulnerable in front of her first. Maybe because he reminded her of her grandfather. He has a heart condition, she said quietly. He was born with it. He needs surgery, but it is complicated. The cost is, well, it is a lot. We are working on it. I'm sorry to hear that. He seemed like a strong boy. He is the toughest kid I know. Her voice caught. Just for a second. Then she straightened up and smiled again. He just needs a chance. That is all. Just a chance. Ellis nodded slowly. I believe he will get one. Can I get you the smothered pork chops? That is the special tonight. The owner makes them from scratch. They talked a little more while Latrice brought his food. She checked on him between other tables, always moving, always working. Ellis watched her. He noticed how she remembered every regular's name, how she refilled the sweet tea for the old couple in the corner without being asked, how she slipped an extra piece of cornbread onto the plate of an elderly woman eating alone. When a customer at one table snapped his fingers and complained that his food was cold, Latrice apologized warmly and had a fresh plate out in minutes. No attitude, no eye roll, just grace under pressure. When Ellis finished his meal, he left a large bill folded under the edge of his plate. He stood up quietly, put on his cap, and headed for the door. He was halfway down the block when he heard footsteps behind him. Sir, wait." Latrice caught up to him, slightly out of breath, holding the large bill. "I think you made a mistake. You left too much. Your meal was only a small amount." Ellis looked at her. This woman, who needed so much, who was drowning in medical debt, who probably had not bought herself anything in months, was chasing him down the street to return money she thought he had left by accident. "It is not a mistake, sweetheart," he said gently. "You earned it." "Sir, I cannot take this. It is too much." Then consider it a gift from a grateful old man who was cold and alone, and who met someone kind enough to care. Latrice's eyes glistened. She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. She folded the bill carefully and held it to her chest. "Thank you," she whispered. "You have no idea what this means." "I think I do," Ellis said softly. "Take care of that boy. He is lucky to have you." He turned and walked away into the evening. Behind him, Latrice stood on the sidewalk watching him go, holding the money like it was made of gold. She did not know his name. She did not know he owned the hospital that had turned her son away. She did not know that what happened next would change her life forever. But Ellis knew, and he was just getting started. 1 week later, everything fell apart. It was a morning. Malik was sitting at his desk in his teacher's second-grade classroom coloring a picture of a rocket ship when he dropped his crayon. His hand went to his chest. His face went gray. And then he slid sideways off his chair and hit the floor. The teacher screamed. 2 children started crying. The school nurse was there quickly. She checked his pulse. It was racing, irregular. His lips were dark blue. His skin was cold and clammy. She called for help. The ambulance arrived soon. The paramedics loaded Malik onto a stretcher. He was conscious, but barely. His eyes were open, glassy, unfocused. He kept whispering one word over and over. "Mama." The nearest hospital with a pediatric cardiac unit was Harrington Medical Center. The ambulance tore through the streets of East Baltimore with its sirens screaming. Latrice's phone rang. She was on a floor of the waterfront inn, stripping sheets off a bed. She would remember that room number for the rest of her life. "Ms. Carter, this is the principal at the elementary school. Your son, Malik, collapsed in class. An ambulance has taken him to Harrington Medical Center. You need to get there now." Latrice dropped the sheets. She did not grab her bag. She did not clock out. She did not tell her supervisor. She just ran down the hallway, down the stairs, out the front door of the hotel into the cold air, still wearing her gray housekeeping uniform with the name tag pinned to her chest. She could not afford a cab. The bus would take too long, so she ran. Blocks to the bus stop, caught the bus by seconds, rode it for agonizing minutes, then ran more blocks from the bus stop to the hospital entrance. She burst through the emergency room doors, hair wild, chest heaving, eyes frantic. My son, Millette Carter. He was brought in by ambulance. Where is he? A nurse led her down a long white hallway to the pediatric emergency unit, and there was Malik, her baby, lying on a hospital bed that looked too big for his small body. Wires attached to his chest, an IV line in his arm, an oxygen mask over his face, monitors beeping in a steady mechanical rhythm. He looked so small, so fragile, like a leaf that the wind could carry away. Latrice grabbed his hand. It was cold. Baby, I am here. Mama is here. Malik's eyes fluttered open. He tried to smile beneath the oxygen mask. His voice came out thin, barely a whisper. Mama, do not cry. I am okay. But he was not okay, and Latrice knew it. Dr. Patterson, the attending cardiologist, pulled Latrice into the hallway minutes later. He was a tall man with kind eyes and a voice that was clearly practiced at delivering bad news gently. Ms. Carter, your son's condition has deteriorated significantly. The tetralogy of Fallot that was diagnosed earlier, it involves 4 structural defects in his heart, the hole between his ventricles, the narrowing of his pulmonary valve, the thickened right ventricle, and the displaced aorta. All 4 of these problems are now creating a critical situation. His blood oxygen levels are dangerously low. What does that mean? Latrice asked, though she already knew. It means he needs surgery, open heart surgery. We need to repair all 4 defects at once, and we need to do it soon. If we wait longer than that, the risk of cardiac arrest increases substantially. The estimated cost of the procedure is substantial. Dr. Patterson continued. I know that is a significant number, and I want you to know that our financial services team can work with you on options. I will sign anything, Latrice said immediately. I will pay anything. Whatever it takes. Just save my son. I understand. Let me connect you with our billing department. Minutes later, Latrice sat across from a woman in a beige blazer in a small office on the first floor. The woman had a computer screen in front of her and a practiced, professional expression that held no warmth. Ms. Carter, I have reviewed your insurance coverage. Your Medicaid plan covers a portion of the procedure, but there is a remaining balance. Without insurance approval or a deposit, we are unable to schedule the surgery at this time. At this time. Latrice's voice cracked. My son could die soon. What do you mean at this time? I understand your concern, and I am sorry, but hospital policy requires financial clearance before we can proceed with surgical procedures. Elective? There is nothing elective about this. My young son is upstairs right now with a broken heart, and you are telling me you will not fix it because I do not have the money? The woman looked down at her keyboard. I can give you a list of financial assistance programs and emergency funding sources. Some of them have expedited review processes. Latrice stared at her. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The clock on the wall ticked, and for the first time in years of fighting, Latrice had no idea what to do next. She walked back upstairs to Malik's room. She sat down in the plastic chair beside his bed. She took his hand again. Malik looked up at her. Mama, why are you sad? I am not sad, baby. I'm just thinking. About what? About how much I love you. Malik smiled. That wide, bright smile that could light up any room, even a hospital room, with beeping machines and fluorescent lights. I love you too, Mama. More than rocket ships. Latrice pressed his hand against her cheek and closed her eyes. And a system that would let a child suffer over paperwork. She had never felt more alone in her life. But she was not alone. Because 2 floors up in an office with his name on the door, a phone was ringing. Gloria Monroe picked up on the first ring. She had been waiting for this moment since the boy came through the emergency room doors. She dialed Ellis before her coffee was even cold. "Ellis, it is Gloria. That boy you asked me about, Malik Carter. He just came in through the ER." Silence on the other end. "It is bad, Ellis. His oxygen levels are critical. He collapsed at school this morning. Dr. Patterson is stabilizing him now, but the surgery cannot wait. He needs it soon." More silence. Then Ellis's voice, low and tight. "Who is the surgeon on call for pediatric cardiac? Dr. Patterson can do a standard repair, but this case is complex. 4 defects. A young boy's heart. This needs a specialist, Ellis. This needs the best. This needs Devin." "Yes, it does." Ellis was quiet for a long time. Through the phone, Gloria could hear him breathing. She had known this man for decades. She knew what that silence meant. He was making a decision. "Set up a meeting with my son," Ellis said finally. "Tonight, my office. And if he says no, then I will have to find another way. But he will not say no, not after he hears what I have to tell him." Ellis hung up. He sat alone in his study at home looking at the framed photograph on his desk. It was an old picture of a woman holding a baby. His mother holding him, taken years before her heart gave out. He picked it up, held it for a long moment. "I am not going to let this happen again, Mama," he whispered. "Not in my hospital, not on my watch." That evening, Devin walked into his father's office at Harrington Medical Center. He was still in his scrubs. He had been in surgery until recently, a routine valve replacement on a man with excellent insurance. The surgery had gone perfectly. It always did. Devin's hands never failed him. It was his heart that had gone quiet. Ellis was standing by the window looking out at the Baltimore skyline. He did not turn around when Devin came in. "You said it was urgent." "Sit down, son." Devin sat. He crossed his arms. His body language said everything. He was already defensive. Ellis turned around, and instead of giving an order, instead of pulling rank, instead of doing any of the things Devin expected, he told a story. He told Devin about the evening it rained, about sitting on a bus stop bench soaked to the bone after the board meeting, about a little boy who tugged on his mother's sleeve and said, "Mama, that man is shaking. Can we help him?" He told him about a woman who took off her only coat and wrapped it around a stranger's shoulders, a woman who was freezing and tired and barely surviving, a woman whose son needed expensive surgery that she could not afford. "That woman's son is in this hospital right now," Ellis said. "Pediatric cardiac unit, Malik Carter, young, tetralogy of Fallot. He needs surgery soon or he will die. And the billing department told his mother they cannot schedule it without a large deposit." Devin's jaw tightened. "Dad, I have heard this before. You cannot fix the entire healthcare system by guilt-tripping me into doing free surgeries. I am not trying to fix the entire healthcare system. I'm trying to save one boy. And what about the next one? And the one after that? Where does it stop?" Ellis leaned forward. "When you were younger, you told me you wanted to be a heart surgeon. Do you remember what you said when I asked you why?" Devin said nothing. "You said, 'Because I want to fix what is broken inside people, Dad. Not just their hearts. Everything.'" Devin's face flickered. Just for a second, something moved behind his eyes. "That was a child talking," he said. "The real world does not work that way. Then why does a young boy have to die because the real world does not work that way?" The room went silent. The clock ticked on the wall. Neither of them moved. "You are guilt-tripping me," Devin said, but his voice had lost its edge. "No, I am reminding you who you are. You took an oath, Devin. You stood in front of your professors and your classmates, and you swore to do no harm. You swore to put the patient first, not the billing department, not the board of directors, the patient. You think I do not know that? Devon's voice rose. You think I do not think about it every single day? I became a doctor to help people, Dad. But this hospital runs on money, and every charity case we take on is another argument with the board, another fight I have to have. I am tired of fighting. Then stop fighting the board, Ellis said quietly, and start fighting for the boy. Devon stood up. His chair scraped against the floor. He walked to the door, put his hand on the handle. The pediatric cardiac unit? He said without turning around. The pediatric cardiac unit. Devon opened the door and walked out. He did not say yes, but he did not say no, and Ellis sat there, his hands clasped together, hoping that somewhere inside his brilliant, stubborn, broken son, there was still a child who wanted to fix what was broken. The next morning, Devon walked into Harrington Medical Center through the staff entrance. He told himself he was just going to check the file, review the imaging, see if the case was even operable. He was not going to visit the patient. He was absolutely not going to get emotionally involved. He pulled up Malik's chart on his tablet. Tetralogy of Fallot, severe. The echocardiogram showed all 4 defects clearly. The ventricular septal defect was large. The pulmonary stenosis was critical. The right ventricular hypertrophy was advanced, and the overriding aorta was positioned exactly where it should not be. It was a complex case, textbook, but complex. Devon studied the imaging. He ran the numbers in his head. Surgical approach, bypass time, recovery protocols. His hands were steady. His mind was clear. This was the part of medicine he loved. The puzzle, the precision, the certainty that his skills could make the difference between life and death. Then he made a mistake. He walked past the room on his way to the surgical wing, and the door was open. Malik was awake, sitting up in bed with a crayon in one hand and a piece of paper in the other. The IV line ran from his arm to a bag on a metal pole. The oxygen monitor was clipped to his finger, casting a soft red glow. His lips were still that faint shade of blue that Devon had seen in many patients, but he was drawing, tongue poking out the side of his mouth in concentration, completely absorbed. Latrice sat beside him in the plastic chair, reading from a picture book in a voice that was warm and animated, doing different voices for each character. Her eyes were red and puffy from crying, but her voice never wavered, not in front of her son. Malik looked up and saw Devon standing in the doorway. His face broke into a grin. "Hi, mister. Are you a doctor?" "You look like a doctor." Devon hesitated. He should keep walking. He should review the file from his office. He should not do this. "Yes," he heard himself say. "I am a doctor. Can you fix my heart because my heart is broken? Like actually broken. Not like in the sad songs." Something cracked inside Devon. Something he had been holding together with schedules and spreadsheets and board meetings for years. He walked into the room. "I am Dr. Drummond," he said. "What is your name?" "Malik. And this is my mama. She is a queen." Latrice looked up, startled. "Malik, do not bother the doctor." "He is not bothering me," Devon said. He pulled up a chair and sat down next to the bed. "So, Malik, what are you drawing?" Malik held up the paper proudly. It was a crayon drawing of a woman wearing a large, golden crown. She was smiling and had long, curly hair. Behind her were stars and what appeared to be a castle. "That is my mama," Malik said. "I drew her as a queen because she is a queen. She just does not know it yet." Devon looked at the drawing. Then he looked at Latrice, who was pressing her hand over her mouth, trying not to cry, and he looked back at Malik. Young, blue lips, broken heart, drawing his mother as royalty in a hospital bed because he did not know how else to tell her she was everything. "That is a really good drawing," Devon said. His voice was thick. "You can have it if you want," Malik offered. "I can make another one for Mama. I would like that." "Thank you, Malik." Devon stayed for a while. He listened to Malik talk about rocket ships and his favorite cartoon, and the dog he wanted to get when he was bigger. He watched the boy's oxygen levels on the monitor. He watched how Latrice held her son's hand the entire time without ever letting go. He noticed the housekeeping uniform she was still wearing, the name tag, the shoes that were worn down at the heels from standing all day. When he left the room, he stood in the hallway for a long moment, alone, holding a crayon drawing of a queen. Then he went to find Latrice. She was standing at the vending machine at the end of the hall, staring at the options but not buying anything. She could not afford to waste money. "Ms. Carter," she turned around. "I am Dr. Devin Drummond. I am a pediatric cardiac surgeon. I have reviewed your son's case and his imaging. His condition is serious, but it is operable. I want to perform his surgery." Latrice's face went through 3 emotions in seconds: hope, confusion, fear. "I appreciate that, doctor. I really do. But I have already been told without a large deposit. They will not schedule the procedure, and I do not have it. I have tried everything." Devin looked at her. This woman who worked 2 jobs, who gave her coat to a stranger in the rain, who was standing in a hospital hallway in a housekeeping uniform, trying to save her son's life. "I did not ask about payment," he said. "I asked if you would let me save your son." Latrice blinked. "What?" "The surgery. I will do it. Soon. No deposit, no billing department. Just me, my team, and your son." "I do not understand. Why? Why would you do this?" Devin was quiet for a moment. He thought about his father's face the other evening. He thought about the oath he had taken. He thought about a child who once wanted to fix everything that was broken because someone reminded me why I became a doctor. Latrice stared at him. Her chin trembled. Tears spilled down her cheeks. She opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. So she just nodded over and over, nodding through the tears. "Thank you," she finally managed. "Thank you. You have no idea what this means." "I think I do," Devin said softly, and he meant it. Then Latrice stopped. Something clicked behind her eyes. "Drummond. Your name is Drummond, like the hospital." "Yes. My father built this place." Latrice looked at him for a long moment. Something flickered across her face, a shadow of recognition, a question forming, but it did not fully take shape. Not yet. "Your father must be a good man," she said. Devin thought about his father sitting alone in his office, begging his son to remember who he was. "He is," Devin said quietly. "He really is." The surgery was scheduled for early the next morning. Latrice was up before dawn. She had not slept. She had spent the night in the plastic chair next to Malik's bed, watching his chest rise and fall, counting breaths the way she had done many times before. But tonight was different. Tonight might be the last time she had to count. The nurses came in to prep Malik. They were gentle, kind. One of them had a warm smile and spoke to Malik like he was the most important person in the building, because right now, he was. Malik was groggy but awake. They put him in a small hospital gown with tiny blue stars on it. He looked so small in that gown, so fragile, like a bird with a broken wing. "Mama, I am right here, baby. When I wake up, will my heart be fixed?" Latrice knelt beside the bed. She took his face in both hands and looked straight into his eyes. "Yes, baby. When you wake up, you will be able to run as fast as you want. No more sitting out at recess. No more getting tired on the stairs. You are going to run, Malik. As fast as the wind." He smiled. That wide, beautiful smile. "Faster than the other kids?" "Way faster." He giggled. Then his face got serious. "Mama, are you scared?" "A little bit." "Do not be. The doctor with the nice voice said he is going to take care of me. And I believe him." Latrice kissed his forehead, held it there, let herself breathe him in. The smell of hospital soap and little boy sweat and something sweet underneath, that was just Malik. "I love you more than anything in this world," she whispered. "I love you more than rocket ships, Mama." The nurses wheeled him away. Latrice walked beside the gurney holding his hand until they reached the double doors that said surgical unit, authorized personnel only. The nurse touched her arm gently. "This is as far as you can go, Ms. Carter. We will take good care of him." Malik waved. "See you when I wake up, Mama." The doors swung shut and Latrice stood there staring at those doors, her hand still reaching out for a hand that was no longer there. Yvette found her like that minutes later. She wrapped her arms around her daughter and held on tight. Neither of them said a word. They just stood there in the hallway holding each other while somewhere behind those doors, a team of surgeons prepared to open a young boy's chest and fix what had been broken since the day he was born. The waiting room was small. Beige walls, plastic chairs, a television mounted in the corner playing the morning news on mute, a vending machine humming in the hallway, a clock on the wall with a second hand that seemed to move slower than any clock Latrice had ever seen. They sat down. Yvette pulled out a pair of knitting needles and a ball of yellow yarn from her bag. She started knitting, not because she needed anything, but because her hands needed something to do. If they were still, they would shake. A nurse came out. "He is doing well. Dr. Drummond is closing the septal defect now. Everything is on track." Latrice nodded. She could not speak. Hours passed. Latrice paced back and forth across the small waiting room. Steps one way, steps back. Her shoes made a soft sound on the linoleum floor. Back and forth, back and forth. Yvette knitted. The yellow yarn grew into something shapeless and beautiful. Her lips moved silently. Prayers or counting stitches? Maybe both. A nurse came out again. "Everything is progressing as expected." Latrice closed her eyes. She pressed her palms together in her lap and she prayed silently, the way her mother had taught her, the way her grandmother had taught her mother. The vending machine hummed. The clock ticked. A nurse's shoes squeaked in the hallway. Someone paged a doctor over the intercom. The world kept moving, but in that waiting room, time had stopped. 2 floors above in his office, Ellis Harrington sat at his desk. His computer screen showed the security camera feed from the waiting room. He watched Latrice pace. He watched Yvette knit. He watched Gloria sit with them, patient and steady as a lighthouse. And for the first time in longer than he could remember, Ellis Harrington cried. Not for the hospital, not for the board, not for himself. He cried for a mother who gave her coat to a stranger, and a boy who drew queens with crayons, and a world that made it so hard for good people to survive. He cried because his son was downstairs right now doing the thing he was born to do, saving a life, not for money, not for the board, for a child the way it was always supposed to be. After many hours, the double doors opened. Devin walked out. He was still in his surgical gown. His mask was pulled down around his neck. His eyes were tired, but clear. Latrice stopped pacing. Yvette put down her needles. The room went completely still. "Ms. Carter." Latrice could not breathe. "The surgery was successful. We repaired all 4 defects. His heart is beating on its own, strong and steady. Malik is going to be okay." For a moment, nothing happened. The words hung in the air like they needed time to become real. Then Latrice's knees buckled. Yvette caught her and they held each other sobbing right there in the middle of that beige waiting room with the muted television and the humming vending machine, crying so hard that a nurse passing by in the hallway stopped and pressed her hand to her chest. Latrice pulled away from her mother and reached for Devin's hand. She took it in both of hers and held it tight. "Thank you," she said, her voice broken and beautiful. "Thank you for giving my son a chance." Devin looked at her and something in his face was different, softer, more open. like a window that had been shut for years had finally cracked open. "He gave me something too," Devin said quietly. "He reminded me why this work matters." Gloria stood in the corner watching. She did not say a word. She just smiled and wiped her eyes. An hour later, they let Latrice into the intensive care unit. Malik was asleep. Tubes ran from his arms and chest. An oxygen line sat beneath his nose. Wires connected him to a monitor that beeped softly with each heartbeat. But this time, the rhythm was different. It was steady, even, strong. For the first time in years, Malik Carter's heart was beating the way it was supposed to. Latrice sat beside him. She took his small hand in hers. She did not speak. She just listened to that steady, beautiful beep, the sound of her son's heart finally whole. Days later, Malik was sitting up in bed eating orange gelatin and complaining that the hospital gown was itchy. His color was better. His lips were pink. Actually, pink. Latrice kept staring at them amazed, like she was seeing her son for the first time. That afternoon, a nurse came in and told Latrice that someone wanted to meet her, a donor who had covered the full cost of Malik's surgery. "A donor?" Latrice frowned. "I did not know anyone was paying for this. I thought Dr. Drummond arranged it through the hospital. The benefactor would like to explain in person." "Conference room, 4th floor, whenever you are ready." Latrice kissed Malik's forehead, told Yvette to stay with him, and took the elevator to the 4th floor. She smoothed down her hair, straightened her clothes. She was still wearing the same clothes she had been living in for days. She pushed open the door to the conference room. A man sat at the far end of the table. He was wearing a dark blue suit, perfectly pressed, silver cufflinks. His white hair was neatly combed. He had deep brown eyes, and when he looked up at her, those eyes held something complicated. Gratitude, guilt, hope. Latrice recognized him instantly. "You," she whispered. "You are the man from the bus stop." Ellis Harrington stood up slowly. "Yes, and I owe you an explanation." Latrice did not sit down. She stood in the doorway, her hand still on the door handle, like she might need to leave at any moment. "My name is Ellis Harrington. I am the founder of this hospital." The room tilted. Latrice felt like the floor had shifted beneath her feet. "That evening at the bus stop," Ellis continued, "I was not pretending to be someone I am not. I was at the lowest point of my life. I had just walked out of a board meeting where my own son, my own flesh and blood, told me that saving this hospital's mission was not worth the financial cost. I was angry. I was heartbroken. I walked out into the rain because I did not know where else to go." He paused, and then a little boy tugged on his mother's sleeve and asked if they could help me. Latrice's jaw tightened. She was listening, but her eyes were guarded. "You gave me your coat, your only coat, in the rain, and you did not know who I was. You did not know I could do anything for you. You just saw a man who was cold, and you helped him." And then Latrice asked, her voice was steady, "What happened after that?" "I found out who you were. I found out about Malik, about his condition, and I discovered that my hospital, the hospital I built to serve families like yours, had turned your son away because of a billing policy. You arranged all of this," Latrice said. "Not a question, a statement. The surgery, Devin, all of it. I asked my son to do what he was trained to do, what he was called to do. But Latrice, I did not make him care. He walked into that room and saw your son, and something changed in him. That was real." Latrice was quiet for a long time. She walked to the window and looked out at the Baltimore skyline, the harbor, the buildings, the streets where she had spent her whole life struggling. "I am grateful," she said finally. "I will be grateful every day for the rest of my life that my son is alive, that his heart is beating, that he is going to grow up." She turned around. "But Mr. Harrington, what about the next mother? The one who does not happen to give her coat to a wealthy man? The one sitting in that waiting room right now with the same bills I had and no one who knows her name? What happens to her?" The question landed on Ellis like a stone dropped into still water. He opened his mouth, then closed it, because she was right, and he knew it. "That," Ellis said quietly, "is exactly what I have been asking myself, and I think I finally have an answer." 1 week later, Ellis called an emergency meeting of the Harrington Medical Center Board of Directors. Every seat at the long conference table was filled. Devin sat to his father's right. For the first time in years, they were on the same side of the table. Ellis stood at the head of the room. He did not use notes. He did not use a presentation. He just spoke. "Decades ago, I built this hospital because my mother died of a heart condition that could have been treated if our family had money. I stood on the front steps on opening day, and I made a promise. This hospital will never turn away a child. I broke that promise." The room was silent. Weeks ago, a young boy collapsed at his school because his heart was failing. His mother had called this hospital several times begging for help. Several times she was told to come back when she had the money. That boy almost died. Not because medicine failed him, because we failed him. He looked around the table. "Today, I am announcing the creation of the Malik Fund, named after that boy. This fund will cover the full cost of cardiac surgery for any child under 18 who cannot afford treatment, regardless of their insurance status. It will be funded by allocating a significant portion of the hospital's annual operating surplus." Murmurs around the table. A board member in a gray suit leaned forward. "Ellis, that is millions of dollars a year. The shareholders will not agree to that." "Then I will buy them out," Ellis said calmly. "Every single share, with my personal assets, and I will convert this hospital to a fully non-profit institution. I have already had my lawyers draw up the paperwork." Silence. Devin stood up. Every eye in the room turned to him. "I have spent years fixing hearts on operating tables," Devin said. "I am one of the best cardiac surgeons in this country, but I have been so focused on the science that I forgot about the people. A young boy reminded me, and his mother reminded me." He paused. "I am committing to performing pro bono surgeries regularly through the Malik Fund, and I am asking every surgeon in this hospital to consider doing the same." He looked at his father. Ellis looked back. And between them, something that had been broken for a very long time began to heal. The board voted reluctantly in favor. After the meeting, Ellis asked Latrice to come to his office. "I have a proposition for you," he said. "This hospital needs a patient advocate, someone whose job it is to help families navigate the system, to make sure no mother sits in that waiting room alone, drowning in paperwork and fear. The position pays a good salary with full benefits, health, dental, vision. I want you to take it." Latrice stared at him. "You want me to work here? At the hospital?" "I want you to do here what you already do everywhere else, take care of people." "Mr. Harrington, I am not a doctor. I am not a nurse. I clean rooms and wait tables. You are a mother who fought the entire healthcare system to save her son. You understand what these families go through because you have lived it. There is no degree in the world that teaches that. Patient advocacy is one of the important roles in American healthcare. Coverage has expanded, but many families still fall through the gaps. They need someone on their side, someone who speaks their language, someone who has been where they are." Latrice was quiet. "Why me?" she asked. "Because when you sat in that waiting room terrified and alone, you swore you would find a way. And you did. I want you to help other mothers find their way too." Latrice thought about it for a long time. She thought about the in-rooms, the restaurant shifts, the bills that never stopped coming. She thought about Malik upstairs in his hospital bed drawing pictures of rocket ships in Queens, and she thought about the woman in the billing office, the one who had looked at her computer screen and said, "Without the money, we cannot schedule the surgery." And how in that moment Latrice had felt more alone than she had ever felt in her life. "I will do it," she said. "Not because of the money, because I know what it feels like to sit in that waiting room alone, and no one should have to feel that. Ellis smiled, a real smile, the kind that came from somewhere deep. Welcome to Harrington Medical Center, Latrice. 1 year later, Malik Carter was older, and he was running. Not jogging, not walking fast, running. Full speed, arms pumping, legs flying, across the schoolyard chasing another child in a race that he had been waiting his entire life to run. He crossed the finish line first. He threw his hands in the air. He was not even out of breath. His teacher stood on the sideline pressing her hand to her mouth. She remembered the day he had collapsed in her classroom. She remembered calling for help. She remembered thinking she might never see that smile again. But here he was, smiling wider than ever, alive, whole, running. Across town, Latrice stood in the hallway of Harrington Medical Center. She was wearing a navy blue blazer and a name badge that said, Patient Advocate. Her hair was pulled back neatly. Her shoes were new. In front of her, a young woman sat in a plastic chair, crying. She was holding a stack of medical bills in her hands and a referral letter for her daughter's cardiac surgery. The numbers on the paperwork were overwhelming. The fear on her face was familiar. Latrice knelt down in front of her. She took the woman's hands. I know exactly how you feel, Latrice said, and I'm going to help you through this. Every step. You are not alone. The woman looked up at her, hope breaking through the tears. In its first year, the Malik Fund had provided full surgical funding for many children. Many families who would have been turned away. Many kids who got to run again. Devin performed pro bono surgeries regularly. He started a mentorship program for young surgeons, teaching them that medicine was about more than precision. It was about people. He and Ellis had dinner together every Sunday night now. They did not always agree, but they always showed up. Ellis still took walks through East Baltimore, not in disguise, not to test anyone. He walked because it kept him honest, because it reminded him that the world looked different from a bus stop bench than it did from an upper-floor office. And every time he passed that particular bench, the one where he had sat shivering in the rain, he smiled, because that bench was where everything changed. That evening, Latrice came home from work. She opened the front door of the small house she had been able to rent in a better neighborhood. Clean, bright, 2 bedrooms, a yard where Malik could run. Mama! Malik slammed into her legs like a small tornado. She scooped him up and held him tight. He smelled like grass and sweat and boy. His cheeks were flushed from running. His lips were pink. Beautifully, perfectly pink. I beat the other kids today, he said. By a lot. I am so proud of you, baby. She carried him inside and set him down. He ran off to his room to draw, and as Latrice hung up her coat by the door, her eyes landed on the wall above the couch. There, in a simple wooden frame, hung a crayon drawing. A woman with curly hair wearing a large, golden crown. Stars behind her, a castle in the background, and at the bottom in wobbly young handwriting the words, My mama. She is a queen. She just does not know it yet. Latrice stood there for a moment looking at that drawing, and she thought about everything that had happened. A cold evening, a shivering man, a worn coat, a broken heart that got fixed, a system that got changed, a life that got saved, not just Malik's, hers too, and Ellis's, and Devin's, and many other families who would never know about the evening it all started. She had not given away a coat that evening. She had given away a piece of herself, and somehow the world gave everything back. From down the hall, Malik called out, Mama, come look. I am drawing a new one. It is you and me and rocket ships. Latrice wiped her eyes. She smiled, and she went to her son.